Good morning, everybody. We'll call this, what is today, the April the 8th TPO Technical Committee to order. Let's see here. Looks like we've got plenty of people here, so we have a quorum. Appreciate everyone's attendance. Let's go ahead and just go around the room for brief introductions. Let's start over there with Mr. Conger.
All right, good morning. My name is Mike Conger with TPO staff.
Craig Lipke, also with TPO staff. Brian Boone, City of Maryville Engineering and Public Works.
Jack Walls, City of Loudoun, Loudoun County.
Dallas D. Armand, Knoxville, Knox County Planning Staff.
James Temple, Sevier County Planning Department.
Dakota Gentry, City of Alcoa.
Chico Messer, Blount County.
Daryl Smith, Town of Farragut.
Catherine Baldwin, Anderson County.
Amy Brooks, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Doug Burton, TPO Coordinator.
Jim Snowden, Knox County Engineering Public Works.
Tom Claybo, City of Knoxville.
Deanna Flincham, Knoxville Commuter Pool.
Karen Estes, Knox County CEC Transit.
Blake Sarton, Metro Knoxville Airport Authority.
Roger Flynn, City of Oak Ridge.
Larry Gann, City of Clinton.
Laura Smith, East Tennessee Development District.
Michelle Christian, TDOT.
Tina Whitaker, Lakeway.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Dallas, do we have anyone on Zoom today or virtually?
Anne Marie Anway is joining us on Zoom.
Well, welcome. Do we have anyone propose any amendments for the agenda today? No? Seeing none. We'll move on to item number 2, the minutes of the March 11, 2025 meeting. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to review those. Does anyone have any questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 3 is Mobility Plan 2050 and Air Quality Conformity Report. Looks like Mr. Conger's got this one. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everyone. This item is for your action today to recommend adoption of the Mobility Plan 2050 and Air Quality Conformity Report. So this is the slide you've seen several times so far, the schedule for the Mobility Plan, which started way back in fall, winter of 2023. And now finally we've made it here to the finish line. All that's remaining is the final Federal Highway Review, which they have until April 17th, and our 30-day public comment period, which runs until April 22nd. And then final plan adoption is scheduled now for April 30th for the Executive Board meeting on that date. So a quick overview of the plan, which you've seen all along the way. This is nothing really new today for you, but just a quick overview again. We do have a dedicated website, knoxmobility.org, and you can find the plan there and other supporting documents. So the plan's organized into kind of a main sort of executive summary level document that's still, I guess, 40 or 50 pages long, but has more infographics, easier to digest than the technical data that's in the appendices of the report where all the meat of the plan resides. So Chapter 1 just gives a broad overview of the TPO and our goals and performance measures and summarizes public engagement process. Chapter 2 is sort of the existing conditions of the region, what our population, demographics, and then elements of the transportation system by each mode, the roads and freight, bike ped, public transit, and rail, ITS, so on. Chapter 3 talks about where we're going in the future. Of course, we have to look out at least 20 years. Our plan goes all the way to 2050. We talk about the travel demand model and how we selected or prioritize the projects that were applied for. We've broken out the projects into different horizons out to 2050. So there's a 2030, 2040, 2050, and projects are shown by each county. We also do have air quality conformity that I'll talk about here in a little bit more detail later. Again, we do have a very long set of appendices with all the supporting data for the plan, and the project table, individual projects are listed in there, pointed out there on this chart. Do also want to remind everybody we have an interactive public comment tool on ArcGIS web map, and I checked this morning, we've already gotten about 100 or so comments from the public on individual projects, so we'll be summarizing all that in the final plan. Generally, most of them seem to be supportive, especially for the bike ped types of projects that we have in there. Of course, there's always a few that folks are not super excited about, widening or new projects that may impact them. We're also working on this thing on the bottom right shown here, the ArcGIS experience. We showed this a little bit at your last meeting. This is an interactive way to view the mobility plan. We're still kind of fleshing that out and working on the final, getting the data in there. But this we're really excited about is a way to approach the plan from the public and view the performance measures and conditions of the network. And then hopefully we can build on this for the next plan. So the intent would be as we develop the next mobility plan, which we have to do every 4 years, kind of have this as a starting point and then build upon that as we go through so that everybody can kind of see how the existing conditions in real time and build on that. So we'll be showing that a lot more as we move forward. So switching gears a little bit to air quality conformity, this is required of us as a maintenance area for certain EPA air quality standards. And of course, mobile sources have an impact on our pollution. This truck up here is obviously not a clean vehicle. I'm happy to say most vehicles on the road now are much cleaner than they were 20 years ago when I started doing this process. And continues to be improvements in that area. So EPA regulates 6 criteria pollutants shown here, and our region's had issues meeting 2 of those in the past. Ground level ozone, not to be confused with the ozone layer up above, but as ozone's in the lower portions, it causes smog basically and other issues. There's also fine particulate matter that we've been out of compliance for in the past. So air quality conformity just boils down to saying that we're not using the federal funds we get for our transportation projects on projects that will cause us to not be able to meet those EPA standards in the time that we're supposed to, basically. So this is done through a technical process with different models. We have our travel demand model, then an EPA model called MOVES. Basically, the travel demand model gives us vehicle miles of travel. We multiply that by emission rates from the MOVES model and get the total amount of emissions coming from our on-road system. And that has to be less than our allowable budget, motor vehicle emissions budget. The areas subject to air quality conformity, these are the different standards we've had not met before. I'm happy to say we are meeting all of these standards now, so we are now considered a maintenance area instead of a non-attainment area. Once you get back into compliance with the standard, though, the maintenance is a 20-year required period, which conformity still applies during that. The one on the far left, 1997 ozone standard, it actually got revoked when the 2008 standard came in, and it went away for a little while, but then it came back from a court decision that said you can't do away with conformity as a anti-backsliding measure. So we're still required to do some level of detail for that, but it's not as rigorous as the other 2 standards shown here. So you can see the region, primarily Knox, Blount, Anderson, Loudoun, and some other parts of the counties there. So this is we have a separate report that's on our website for the air quality conformity determination. I can't say it's the most exciting reading of all, but it documents the whole process we went through with our interagency partners with EPA, Federal Highway, and TDEC, and so on. And these tables show the quantification of those emissions against the budgets that we have to meet. And this is done for each of those. We have certain required analysis years between now and the end of the plan. I won't talk about each number individually, but we're well below that budget level for each of these emissions types, both on the ozone and PM 2.5 standards. So we're not anywhere close to exceeding those allowable budgets. So therefore, we demonstrated conformity with that. So wrapping up here, we did advertise the plan. It's been out. There's been a few media stories about the plan. We've gotten, like I said, comments on projects and other comments submitted. We did advertise this meeting as one where the public could come and specifically provide any comments on either the plan or conformity. So I just wanted to pause right now in case we do have anyone. that would like to make comment? So seeing none, then did also want to mention that we have another public meeting opportunity at noon today, a virtual public meeting on Zoom. So we'll be doing that with our consultant. As I mentioned before, we are also taking public comments until April 22nd. And then the final hearing is on April 30th. So that's all, unless there's any questions about the plan. And of course, we appreciate everyone's assistance and support throughout the process of developing the plan. So,
Any questions for Mike? I just want to say, appreciate all the hard work. I know the consultant did a lot of it, but you guys worked real hard on this, so much obliged for that.
thank you.
Seeing no questions, this does need a motion, doesn't it, Doug? Is there a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Item number 4 is the Transportation Improvement Program amendments. Look like there's quite a few here, so we'll let Mr. Craig go through those for us.
There are indeed quite a few amendments, and this is largely related to the mobility plan adoption and 10-year plan update that we'll speak about briefly here in a bit, I'm sure, aligning basically timelines for projects that are in the TIP that are currently moving forward to make sure that we're properly reflecting what's going on with projects that are active. And then as well, one that is just kind of a normal order of business, we've got an amendment request from the city of Knoxville updating one of their active projects unrelated to kind of mobility plan or 10-year plan kind of fallout. So again, overall, 11 project amendments, more than what we typically see at any one time, but again, kind of a special case here with the mobility plan and 10-year plan changes. 9 of them are exempt from air quality, 2 non-exempt projects. Again, revising 1 existing project for City of Knoxville, adding a project for TDOT, and then 9 projects that are being removed because they don't align with where projects either are included or not included in the 10-year plan or the mobility plan. The total impact that you see with the net on balance, a lot of projects removed, we're removing about $58 million removed from the project. You'll see that all of those funding categories there in order, other than that state funding that's being added for the TDOT project, all programs that are impacted are removal of funds for this program, primarily highlighted by $24 million of LSTBG and $22.7 million of NHPP, kind of the big dollar items that are being removed from the project, or from the TIP, I apologize. This is the project for City of Knoxville that is being amended, and this is their Advanced Traffic Management System Phase 1. This is 2 corridors, both Kingston Pike from Metron Center Way to Lovell Road, and Broadway from Jackson Avenue to Foley Drive. This project is being revised to kind of clarify the termini, pulling the Broadway Avenue corridor back a little bit and just clarifying the ends really with essentially the same termini on the Kingston Pike corridor, and then amending to revise the project schedule, adding some development costs, NEPA design and right-of-way costs, and then removing the construction phase, which is the design and project development is going to be carried forward with this individual project, and construction phases for Broadway as well as the Kingston Pike project are going to be split out and entered as their own individual projects. So that's kind of the reduction here, is just kind of clarifying development for both corridors happens here, and then construction is going to be separate projects that will be added individually. And we're already in conversations with the new TIP project call that we'll talk in a bit about adding the Broadway corridor back in for this phase. And this is PM 2.5 money that's being added. Again, you see the NEPA design and right-of-way costs, $44,000, $437,000, and $440,000, all in this fiscal year to add. And then the total project cost is actually a reduction here because, again, the total cost in this instance is the development phases for all of these, and the construction costs will be borne as their own project cost. That's the one that's maybe individual that's going on. There may be questions. If there are any questions about that, I'll pause there for a moment before I move on to essentially a lot of removals.
I had a quick question on that. The city, it goes from Lovell to where on Kingston Pike? I didn't catch the beginning.
Let's see here. Well, we are clarifying that. The Kingston Pike is from Metron Center Way to Huxley Road actually is the revised termini, and I believe that is just east of Level Road, just a bit. So it was previously listed as Level, but actually the final intersection, my understanding, is Huxley Road, and the city could perhaps speak to that.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know city street names. Where's the beginning, where's that at in reference to a landmark that I would know? I'm sorry.
Just past Sunspot, essentially, right? If I recall correctly on.
Metron Center Way is there at the shopping center, just near the railroad overpass at Cumberland.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thank you. I just-
Tyson Park.
So pretty much the whole thing, so gotcha.
A lot of it,
Good
yeah.
deal. That's very congested, so that's a good project.
Any other questions? If not, we'll proceed to many more changes. So this begins where we have a lot of projects that are either not included in the appropriate timeline or were not included in mobility plan sections. As a general rule, it's just they don't align with the timing in the TDOT 10-year plan. So Montvale Road, this project is a widening project and is going to be removed from the mobility plan as it is not included in the 10-year plan. State Road 115, or State Road 115, US 129 widening. This is also being removed from the 10-year, it's not included in the 10-year plan, is being removed. The project, again, that was a development phase for that project that's being removed. Emory Road, remove this project. Another widening project, also not included in the 10-year plan, will be removed from the program. The interchange at Sharps Gap, this project is also being removed from the plan because it doesn't align with the schedules in the 10-year plan. Chapman Highway Operational and Safety projects, this project as well is being removed from the mobility plan to remove the development phases that are there. I-75, this is in Knox County from Emory Road to near Raccoon Valley Road, removing this widening project as well. Pellissippi Parkway interchange at Solway, Oak Ridge Highway. That project as well, not included in the 10-year plan and will be removed from the TIP. I-75 widening, this is the one add. This is I-75 widening just west of the 4075 split in Loudoun County. We'll be adding that project for NEPA design phase with state-funded program dollars in fiscal 2025. Sevierville Road, this is a hybrid project, partnership between City of Maryville and TDOT. This project as well is being removed from the mobility, the TIP because it's not included in the mobility plan. That's not proceeding at this point. Morganton Road roadway improvements, similarly, this project is not included in the draft mobility plan for Blount County, and that project as well will be removed from the TIP. That was a lot of stuff that we blew through real quick there, so if there are any questions about any specific projects, I can attempt to answer those. Do you have something?
I was just going to add to this, this looks like a lot of project removals. So what happened there is when TDOT passed the Improve Act in 2017, of course, it generated a whole slew of new projects that's associated with that increased fuel tax measure. So TDOT started PE or program preliminary engineering on about all of those projects. So that's how they wound up in our TIP. These are pretty much across the board, just programmed for PE phases. So when TDOT shifted focus, and they'll probably talk about this more later, we have some updates from TDOT, and the 10-year plan, new 10-year plan was released just yesterday, late after evening or whatever. So with the 10-year plan process, TDOT honed in and said we need to fiscally constrain everything and make sure we're focusing on the projects so we have funding to build instead of starting more than we can handle, essentially. So this would have had to happen either with our new TIP that we're going to be adopting in the fall, the 26 to 29 TIP, or now, which it has to happen now, as Craig mentioned, to make sure our mobility plan always has to be consistent with the TIP at all times. So we adopt a new mobility plan. That means the TIP needs to match. So that's what this is attempting to reconcile.
Well summarized.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. That kind of answers some of the questions I was maybe going to propose, so.
I have a
appreciate
question.
that. Catherine, go ahead.
So a lot of these projects are very important and have safety implications. How will they go back into an active status?
So yeah, so what we're hoping to see is that these projects make their way into the 10-year plan. TDOT has said they'll annually update the 10-year plan, which they did. In fact, just yesterday, as I mentioned, the first 10-year plan came out in December 2023. The new 10-year plan just came out, I think it was expected to come out sooner, but then with the hurricane and trying to respond to that and figure out whether they get reimbursed for those projects, they had to push it back a little bit. And then there's another opportunity for this 10-year plan to be amended. TDOT has a request for a $1 billion additional general fund infusion this year that hasn't been acted by the state legislature. So when they rolled out this 10-year plan yesterday, they're simply saying this is what we know right now based on our budget, but we could potentially get this additional funding, which about a month or so from now, new projects could be added with that. So I don't want to keep speaking on behalf of TDOT, but maybe Dexter or Michelle wants to add on or refute anything I might have said.
And obviously with removing that many, how will the projects be prioritized to put them back in or get them?
That's a question for TDOT. That's what we're trying to understand as well at the MPO level here. We'd like to have obviously some coordination as the prioritization occurs.
And I'll add one piece. You speak to safety, so specifically I'll call this one, this project, as a TDOT long segment there that was going to be broken up in segments. Chapman Highway, the city was successful in being awarded a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant for the northern section of this from Blunt Avenue to the entrance to the quarry, I believe. What's the road there?
Fort Dickerson.
Yeah, to the Fort Dickerson entrance. So an element, a piece, a subset of this project will be coming back in through the TIP project call that's currently out. So we'll be programming that in. So that's one piece that we'll see. We'll likely see these projects come back in portions. So. TDOT have any?
Does someone want to, I don't know, do your question? I don't know.
No, you've answered it.
Okay.
I guess I'm particularly concerned about the project that is on the Pellissippi extension where it turns into Illinois, the southbound lane for the old Oak Ridge Highway, which does not exist. And considering
the Saltway interchange, this one?
Yes. I don't think unless you go north every day into Oak Ridge, you realize what a safety problem that is, and also with the volume of traffic. And I've always been concerned about it from the folks who are coming into Oak Ridge and leaving Oak Ridge, which are Knox County residents primarily, and that, we're at gridlock there. And I don't think that over the years that has been given enough emphasis, especially considering the expansion that is going on, the economic expansion or investment that's going on in Oak Ridge, and that traffic getting worse and worse, and not addressing that everyone who comes, that is using the Oak Ridge Highway has to go north, make a U-turn with that volume of traffic to head south. So I would put in a plug for that to be a priority. It's just very concerning. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we do need a motion on this item. So the TIP amendment, item number 4, do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Number 5 is the fiscal year 26 to 29 TIP program update. Looks like, Craig, this is you again, buddy.
This is me. Yep. So this is just an update on where we stand with the project call for project categories that are at the purview of technical committee and ultimately the executive board here locally. We had that project call back earlier in the year and just getting started on letting you know where we are, and then we'll have a conversation with each of our partner agencies to kind of navigate what that fiscal picture looks like, because ultimately that project, we have to constrain the project list to available revenues that are projected. So giving you a little bit of an insight into where we are. A total of, let's see, that's 60 projects overall that were applied for, 22 of which were new projects, 38 were existing projects that were rolling forward that were already in the previous TIP and are moving forward with existing phases and adding in subsequent phases of project development. When we look at this project overall, you know, the great lion's share of everything that came in were LSTBG. That's our most flexible funding source, 18 new projects that came in on that program, $72.5 million in the federal share LSTBG that was requested, 2 projects in the TAP program that were new, $3.8 million of federal share. Curiously, no carbon reduction program funds that were requested. That's a relatively flexible program as well. And ultimately what we'll do is work with our partners to kind of shift some individual costs for projects into that to provide some overall our best way to utilize all of the funds that are available, because when we get to the next slides, you're going to see that we don't have enough funds for some of the overall program from what was requested. CMAQ PM 2.5, although that is a program that we're going to be in consultation with TDOT to see what we can award and how many years of allocation will be granted sort of programming authority for. On the rollover projects that were submitted, $137.3 million total. $62 million of those were already included in the previous plan, a previous TIP, and $74.8 million that are new costs, whether those are cost increase or new phase requests that were not included previously. Similarly, you'll see just over $10 million on the TAP program, $3 million on carbon reduction program, and $9.5 million in PM 2.5 with the relevant carryover and new dollar figures that you see there in parens. We also had existing CMAQ project rollover applications that there were 8 of those that rolled forward, and that's with project funding that was awarded from the state CMAQ call. Real quickly, if we look at the tables here, and this, kind of easy to walk through and take a look at the math, we're just projecting the revenues, both our annual allocations and any funds that would carry forward into the TIP, and that's always kind of a moving target, but right now we would estimate about $70 million that would carry forward. The federal revenue that you see across that top line, then you kind of add that to and take away the project dollars. So if we look at our rollover only, let's look at the bottom line here, I guess, on this table. For rollover projects only, in that first fiscal year, we'll have $9.7 million available, $2.6 million when you go out to the next year, $12.3 in 2028, and then we're in a negative $11 million position in fiscal, that is not fiscal 202, that is fiscal 2029. So we are in a position where we're going to have to move some funds around and look at adjusting schedules. If you go up one line, the line above that is you have all requested projects, which are the new revenue asks. Then obviously that picture is a lot more significant. The thing to keep in mind on each of these projects, these tables, this also does not reflect the 10% project, the project holdback, so to speak. I'm losing the term, but our contingency reserve, thank you very much for pulling that for me. The contingency reserve funding that we do have to account for cost overruns, which I'm pretty pleased this time. I think we're going to land the current TIP at really kind of right about where we need to be on that, and we didn't hold back too much, but we're also able to fund the cost overruns that we have. So we'll have to factor that in when we're having that conversation with everybody. So, in this case, that's another, revenue of something in the neighborhood of $10 or $11 million. So we're going to need to make some additional adjustments there. TAP program, kind of similar structure to the table. We're anticipating a carryover of a little in excess of $5 million. You'll see the revenues across there in the top years. Right now, with the new project requests and the balance that you see there, that's with everything all in. We're in a negative position there. I will indicate that the carbon reduction has much of the same funding eligibility, so I think we're going to be able to shift some of these asks to the carbon reduction program, which when we get to the next slide, you're going to see that actually there's a revenue surplus on that program. So I think that's going to put us in a pretty good position to kind of be able to address those dollars pretty well. We had a small amount of carryover funds and no new project requests coming in on that one. A little bit different table here because I'm only going to show revenue in this first fiscal year period for fiscal 26 for the CMAQ PM 2.5 program. I'm anticipating a small carryover balance based on some conversations with the air quality office that we had related to another project that's going to roll forward. Not projecting any, again, balances in those out years, but you can kind of look at the revenue potentially available there because that program's wide and you can kind of do some math yourself. It would indicate that potentially if we have successful conversation with them about programming in out years, we may be able to accommodate some significant asks there in addition to what was submitted at this point. Those are a lot of numbers, and I know a lot of times we get questions about people start doing kind of running the math on the table and then follow up with questions, particularly that one right there. So I'll pause for a moment if there are any questions. And we're in a similar position to where we were last time. I think in maybe a slightly better position. We were not able to entertain any new projects last time. I think with some conversation, with some shifting around, I think we're going to be able to, but we'll see kind of where that lands.
Thank you, Craig. Those numbers confuse me every year, so I appreciate you going through them each time.
It is.
One of these days I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And I guess to follow up, the next step in this would be, I know we're all sitting down here in next week, I think, to talk about individual projects, just the current status of projects. And we'll also be setting up conversations to go over with each of you, okay, where are we and what can we do to kind of make some adjustments to make this overall package fit across the various funding sources. And I guess the next point of that would be this kind of looking ahead as we'll be looking at any new project scoring that needs to happen, anticipating having our TDOT project submitted and a draft tip here in early summer, back to you guys in July and kind of trying to land this thing in October. Of also, again, not 2022. That's what happens when you recycle a slide. That will also be 2025.
Thank you, Craig. Any questions on that item? Seeing none, no actions needed, so we will move on to item number 6, which is the fiscal year 26-27 Transportation Planning Work Program. Mr. Doug.
Thank you very much. We've talked to you about this a couple times previously, but I wanted to kind of keep this on the agenda. The work program is not officially coming up for adoption until August, but I kind of wanted to, like I said, keep you all up as we go along. It is a required work product that we are, as an MPO, have to do a transportation work program. It's also called a Unified Planning Work Program, so you'll see the acronyms UPWP or TPWP. It's one and the same thing. Here in Tennessee, we do a 2-year plan. So this follows the federal fiscal year. So the first year of our work program would begin October 1 of 2025 and go through September 30th of 26. And the second year, the fiscal year 27, would go from October 1 of 26 through September of 27. We get a expectation memo from FHWA, FTA, and TDOT. It kind of specifies what the work program has to be included, and it gives us an outline of how we have to lay the work program out. All the MPOs across the state are on the same schedule. They all get approved at one time. So I think that's why they put out this expectation memo, so it's easier for them to review. Everyone's looking at kind of the same thing. Our first draft, we turned in to TDOT. They have 30 days to review. They'll give us back some comments, and we can keep tweaking and making minor changes along the way. Our second draft will go into FHW and FTA on June 2nd. They get a little bit of time to review it. They give it back. We can make a few adjustments or make some corrections if they have anything. And then the technical committee and board will adopt it in August. one of the previous meetings, we went over the federal planning factors, was what we have to keep in consideration when we're developing the work program. I didn't want to go back over them. They're real long sentences, but I kind of put some of the buzzwords that were in there, the things we have to think about for our planning area: economic vitality, global competitiveness, safety and security, accessibility and mobility, the environment, energy conservation, connectivity, efficiency, preservation. Those are kind of the big buzzwords that as we're developing work program, the federal government is asking us to try to address those. There are also some statewide planning factors or priorities. They ask us to help you guys with applying for transportation planning grants through their process, and also just work on improved regional coordination. A couple things to keep in mind: there is a new administration at the federal level, and so they could be changing priorities at any time. And in the middle of our work program, the current Transportation Act, the Infrastructure and Investments Jobs Act, will expire. Now, sometimes they'll extend those, or sometimes there may be a brand new one. So we always have to adapt to whatever those new priorities are in the new bill. Next slide. So the way the expectation memos, they give us 6 broad areas that we're to put our work program in. So one is program administration, and this is kind of our day-to-day, behind-the-scenes work task. You know, we have to manage our work program. We participate in the MPO meetings, conferences, training. We have to maintain a proactive public engagement process. We can develop educational or informational documents to share with the public. We maintain our maps, our websites, and then, like I said, prepare for the next act. It's kind of, like I said, behind the scenes stuff. Another broad category that they give us is data collection, analysis, and monitoring. I meant to say before this, we have about 100 tasks outlined in the work program. So these are kind of the greatest hits. I didn't want to go over every single one of them with you. But this is where we do like our traffic count program. We're always keeping up with all the new census data. We monitor changes in land use and how those are impacting the transportation system in our area and vice versa. We maintain crash and safety data. We manage our performance measurements. You passed those at the last meeting, a lot of our performance measures, and we're going to be developing a dashboard for our website. So that will be a key product as we are going through the next work program. A lot of times we do technical reports, and we do this with our planning agency. Sometimes they do a deep dive into like the senior population of our area or the disabled population, how travel patterns are, or maybe about freight in the area. So we'll continue to do those. Those are always really informational. And then we have the data and modeling that Mike does with the mobility plan. So we're always a lot of data with that. There's a short-range planning and a long-range planning, and how those kind of fit in. For short-range planning, it's a lot of what Craig does, maintaining the TIP, preparing the annual list of obligated projects. He monitors the fund balances and works with you guys on project delivery. And we have a new E-tip that we're working with TPOt that's going to be unveiling. And so there'll be a lot of work in getting that all set up. But in the end, we think it'll be a lot more efficient and help us with the TIP process. In the long-range planning section, that's where we maintain the mobility plan. And even though we do a mobility plan every 4 years, we kind of started around the 2-year mark. So at the end of this work program, we'll be starting to get into scoping that out and starting to put together the financial resources. And I think we will be hiring another consultant. So that will kind of be at the very end of this work program, preparing for the next one as we will get heavy into the mobility plan. That'll be 2055. And then we haven't done a major update to the travel demand model, so we'll be looking at hiring a consultant, and this will all fit in with all the new data we're going to get from the household travel survey. There's a multimodal section, and we work with our transit partners. They've all been involved in looking at these projects. There's a little bit of a quirk here. If any of the transit agencies are using federal dollars for planning, it also has to be included in our work program. So CAT does use some of their planning funds. So they have a couple projects listed in here. So they have kind of day-to-day things to do to respond to compliance with FTA. That's the transit asset management, their safety plans, Title VI, the program of projects. CAT is going to do a Title VI plan. Now theirs is a little bit different than the one we bring to you. They actually have to do a periodic bus survey, and they have to have a process that outlines if they make significant route changes, they have a process of how they analyze those. So they'll be hiring a consultant to kind of update all of that work for them. They also are going to look at their CAT lift program. That's their ADA services. They're going to hire a consultant to come in and take a comprehensive look at that. We're going to be working with them, the TPO, and planning on a CAT bus stop and shelter location mapping. And they want, we already have those on a map, but they want to be able to identify like where their next improvements are and make that public facing so people can see where the next amenities upgrades for the CAT system are. The Human Service Coordination Plan, that goes in conjunction with our Section 5310 funds. Those are the funds that we award to like the volunteer programs for like SMILES or CACVAT. We also award vans to like Emory Valley Center or Sertoma Center. We have to have a coordination plan, and the last one we did was about 5 years ago, so we will be looking to hire a consultant to update that plan. We're always working with you guys on developing sidewalk, bike facility, greenway plans. If there's any opportunities out there for complete street strategies, we can work with you guys on that. And then finally, CAT got a federal grant to look at their routes and priority investment areas for transit-oriented development and housing. That study will be done late summer, so we have a phase 2 in that, and we'll probably be looking at hiring a consultant there also. So that's kind of the mobility plan work. And then the final section is called Special Studies and Grant Opportunities. It's a catch-all. So this we have in there, as part of our mobility plan, we have to have a congestion management process. We haven't updated that in a while. And then we also have to have the ITS architecture plan. So we'll be looking at hiring a consultant. Now, Mike and I have been talking. We're not sure whether that'll be all packaged together with the next mobility plan or whether we'll do that late in this plan to get prepared for the mobility plan. But those are two big projects that we need to update. This is where we put some of the planning studies that you have requested. We have the pedestrian accessibility study at the Farragut Town Center with Town of Farragut. Daryl and I have been talking. We may tweak that a little bit to look at a nearby area. We had a request by Maryville for a planning study for the Montville Road. We had a request from the city of Knoxville for a planning study for the Tazewell Pike corridor. We're also looking, the TPO planning and the city of Knoxville at an alleyway survey and study. This is not a study, but our agency continues to work with Knox County on Advanced Knox and a Unified Development Ordinance and some of their small area plans. This just allows us to help participate in those wherever they're talking about transportation issues. We're looking at participating with the city of Knoxville in a comprehensive plan, which will look at land use, transportation, and mobility needs. And this project would be hiring a consultant. And then we have our regional roadway safety action plan. This was a plan, that Ellen did right as she left. Mike and I have been talking. We're working with Anderson County on a sub-plan, and we think we have to adopt those as the technical committee and executive board. And so we're thinking we might have to update that plan to bring. I know some of y'all also have some SS4A grants. So when those are done, we may need to update the overall plan to include those. So it's not a consultant per se, but we need to update that plan. And then we've also, as I said, we can keep adding or tweaking a little bit as we go on. We've still been talking with a couple of you about some additional projects. The planner at Oak Ridge, Wayne Blasius, has been talking to us about a couple potential projects, and a couple of you have reached out. So if you have any ideas, we still have the opportunity to include those. So that's kind of just an overview. And like I said, this does not have to be adopted till August. We'll continue to bring you information along the way. Once we get some more of those projects that we're talking to you in a budget, we can bring you a budget later on so y'all can see how that all works out. I'll take any questions. No action on this, but just for your information.
What's the window for additional projects to be included in the?
I would say the sooner the better. Technically, it probably could go up before we have to do the August meeting. So I would say sometime in July, but the sooner you can get them to us, the better. We also have, a limited amount of dollars. So, we want to be sure we can handle all the projects and not leave anyone out. So if you have something, and I think you've talked to Mike about a couple things, so yes. We can still keep talking about that.
Well, Doug, I appreciate you guys from Knox County's perspective. Anytime we ask for your guys' help, it's always super, super gracious. So much obliged on that. Number 7, we have the Breathe update, and the presenter for this will be Ms. Grace Lev.
as she's coming up, the TPO has been working with the City of Knoxville Office of Sustainability on this BREATHE project, and we wanted to take this opportunity to have Grace come and give you an update with how that project's going along.
My name is Grace Levine. I've served as the City of Knoxville's Sustainability Coordinator for about the last 5 years, and I've served as the project lead for the topic of today's discussion, BREATHE, which is Knoxville's local version of the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, which is also the region's first climate planning process. Let me set this up really quickly, just a moment. All right, great. Thank you so much. I know that TPO has shared a lot of updates with you guys over the last 1.5 years, but I did ask to speak today because we're entering a really critical phase of the project, one where we're engaging working group members to discuss implementation of the climate measures that we have been developing over the last 1.5 years. So today I wanted to share some information about what we're planning to do as the project team, as well as how this might impact you all in your roles day to day. A quick recap about the project. CPRG, as we affectionately call it, is a federal program that has provided $5 billion in grants to local governments to develop and implement plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions as well as other harmful air pollutants. The state of Tennessee, TDEC, was awarded $3 million to develop a plan for the entire state. We here in the city of Knoxville were awarded $1 million to develop a plan for the metro area. Our metro area is being defined as the 9 county regions surrounding Knoxville, so Anderson, Blount, Campbell, Granger, Knox, Loudoun, Morgan, Roane, and Union counties. So thank you to everyone here today who's representing this. We won't go through this in great detail. I mostly wanted to show one of the deliverables that we completed very early on in the process, March of 2024, was what we call the PCAP, the Priority Climate Action Plan. The federal government structured this project, so it was a very quick turnaround, and we were really just focusing on near-term, high-priority, implementation-ready measures. With the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, the CCAP, we're really looking at every single one of these elements in much more detail. So we're looking not just at the priority sectors, the main sources of emissions, but we're looking at sources and sinks of emissions, so agriculture, industry, the generation of electricity, natural working lands that sequester carbon and other emissions. We're looking at projections, we're setting targets, as well as doing a really robust analysis of each measure all the way down to make sure that it works for our region and really lifts up those who will be first and worst hit by climate change, as well as developing our economy and improving quality of life across the region. As I said, the City of Knoxville was the lead recipient on this, but we're here today because TPO has been a key partner in the regional engagement element of the project. We're also partnering with a marketing and comms firm out of Nashville, Finn Partners, ICF, which is a global industry expert, and they've performed a lot of the technical analysis for the project, as well as local consultant 3 Cubed. Where we are in the project. So we were awarded this project back in August of 2023. I'm going to skip forward to where we are today. So we convened working groups in the fall of last year and are about to start the second phase of engagement. So last fall, we were really engaging working group members to establish the draft measures that we wanted to look at. What we're looking at for the rest of this spring, summer, and into the fall is really detailing out those measures. We're looking at implementation considerations, which is a requirement of the project. We're also layering that with true public engagement. And then in the background, ICF and the technical team is doing a lot of calculations, data collection, things like that, and preparing the actual document as required for deliverables. I want to thank folks in the room who have participated in the last 1.5 years. Could I get a quick raise of hands for folks that have participated either in working group or the advisory committee? You may not know that your organization is a member, so I'll say Alcoa, Maryville, and Oak Ridge. I want to send special thanks for y'all to your elected leaders signed a letter of support back in 2023 committing to this project and committing to the positive impact it's going to have for the region. So thank you, Dakota, Brian, and Jennifer Williams, as represented by Patrick here today, as well as other participants who have supported the working groups like the CAC and the airport. In total, we have over 100 individuals currently participating in the working groups. So we're going to be bringing these together in the next couple of weeks, actually April 21st and 22nd. We'll come back to that in a minute, to convene and discuss what implementation of these climate measures is going to look like. I'm going to skip through this. I do want to hand out. Thank you, Mike, for passing these out. So right now, after all the analysis of regional programs, this was something that we started back in the Priority Climate Action Plan. We looked at y'all's organizations and your governments and your communities to see what kind of existing policies, programs you already had in place. And from those, we kind of pulled out what we called climate action. So we were looking at things like I just heard SS4A mentioned a few minutes ago. Obviously, the city of Knoxville has two. I think I can point at those as multimodal development. Road design is an example of a climate action, as well as improving safety enhancements for pedestrians and other non-vehicular road users. I'm passing this around. I hope I have enough for everyone. If not, I can send this out later. But these, what I have on the screen are just the summaries of the measures in detail. I want to stress that the way that they have been developed does place some ownership on some of them. So, for example, electric and alt fuel vehicles have been discussed in the context of public fleets, and we'll get into that in a minute of what that might look like. But you can see that this kind of crosses the gamut of sectors, priorities. I'm sure that none of these are new topics to your local governments, especially in public-facing roles. But right now we're at 19 measures, and we'll be considering what the implementation considerations for each of those are. So like I said, we met October through December of last year. We just had a kind of re-engagement kickoff back in the beginning of the month. And then on April 21st and 22nd, we're really going to be looking at these implementation considerations. And so I strongly encourage that you have organizations representation at these events, because I think I want to stress that our project team is very aware that local government is not the only agent that's going to make this a success, but I think having you at the table would be very helpful. We're working towards a deadline of December 1st for completing the required comprehensive climate action plan. So the April dates are really a great point to engage for the rest of 2025, and it should be a pretty low lift. So specifically, what we're going to be talking about in those working group meetings, per the requirements of the grant, we're going to be looking at specifics like implementing authority, sub-actions, and metrics of success. So who would have to be involved for this measure to be successful? What would have to happen for this measure to be successful? And how can we assess the success of this measure? I want to say, as you're looking through, and I'm sorry, I'll get you more copies of the measures, virtually all of them, I would say, directly or indirectly have a role for local government and agencies like yours. The measures either indirectly or directly address government assets, things like fleets, public infrastructure, for the purposes of today's group, road design, public services, things like transit, community programs, and more. So what this might look like for people in the room, we could be having conversations about things like energy management and efficiency goals for public facilities, internal green fleet policies, and public-facing EV chargers. Infrastructure, not only multimodal road design, but expanding the TDM work that your team here is already working on, as well as considering new technologies and materials in construction of roadways to reduce our overall emission footprint, and as well as public services like recycling and composting, obviously beyond the scope of today's group. I want to stress that the city of Knoxville has a lot of these resources already, and we want to serve as resources for you. You all may be familiar with Nick Bradshaw and the city's green fleet policy. I would point to that as being a fantastic resource for people in the room. I'm happy to make connections. I do data and reporting for the city's utilities and emissions, and would be happy to do a demo of how much it takes to actually track utilities and do energy management from that perspective. We will be presenting to the TPO Executive Board later this month. So I think that I'm happy to be here. This conversation will continue, I think, over the coming weeks. So I wanted to preview it with y'all first as the people that really implement this on a day-to-day basis, so that you're not surprised in a couple of weeks when perhaps your elected leaders have some questions about the project. Okay, pivoting. Is it appropriate for me to ask about questions at that point? Okay, let me ask about what I've presented so far. We're almost done. Okay, great. The next element, as required by the grant, is public engagement. So currently, our project plan has been, we're presenting to groups that have asked for more information on the project, but we're also engaging, this is Earth Month, there are a lot of great tabling opportunities. So I'm also going to pass around, starting on this side, the activities that we've asked people to engage in. So there's two components to this. There is an individual pledge where I have compiled about 40 high-impact proven actions that can reduce individual emissions footprints. So things like, let's say on a warm summer day, raising your HVAC by 2 degrees, raising your thermostat a couple of degrees, or tuning your car to make sure that it's performing at its most efficient mode. And then we also have a dot vote on the actual CCAT measures. So again, the summary of what the measures are, we're asking people to say, as a region, what would you like us to focus on? And so I'm showing you a handout from an event this weekend, Tree Fest actually, where people, I think it was a really good engagement opportunity, but we're looking for more. So we currently are scheduled to table at the Dogwood Arts Festival, Earth Day Festival at 71 South, and then Outlandish at IAMS, but we're very much looking and interested for other opportunities, and especially in the communities that have really shown leadership by asserting support for this project, so Alcoa, Maryville, Oak Ridge, as well as City of Knoxville, obviously. We'd love your feedback. I'm available. I encourage you to talk to the TPO team and let them know if there are any opportunities that you know about. With that, please reach out. I suspect I'll be back before the end of the project in December, so please reach out if you have any questions or comments, and I really appreciate your time today. Any questions?
Thank you, Grace. Any questions?
I would just add that, transportation sector is one of the top, if not the top, in greenhouse gas pollutants. And a lot of what we do automatically helps reduce that, just being a more efficient system. So just keep that in mind that as we're over transportation for this area, the things we can do could really help improve the air quality in our area.
I appreciate that, Doug. Thank you. And I know I heard some conversation about carbon planning at the state level, so you can see interest in this from both the federal and state government as well. All right. Thank you all.
Next item's item 8. It's TDOT and FHWA updates. So I wasn't sure who from TDOT was going to.
Michelle?
Yeah, we'll yield it over to Christy and Dexter for their updates.
I think they did ask us to also show a little video. We can load that up also. You want us to do that first?
Have you ever wondered how Have you ever wondered how Tennessee's roads and bridges are planned, funded, and built? It's a complex process, like a giant game of Tetris, where every piece must fit perfectly together. The Tennessee Department of Transportation reevaluates our 10-year project plan every year, but it's not as simple as just picking and scheduling projects. There's a lot more at play. The scope, the funding, the environmental impact, everything must align. Remember, Tetris. Every project needs to be carefully assessed, considering many factors, including importance to the community and how it fits into the statewide transportation plan. A critical part of this process is looking at things like right-of-way sensitivity, environmental mitigation efforts, and the need for federal approval. All can make, break, or delay a project. Just like a well-run race, each phase needs to be successfully executed to cross the finish line before any shovels dig into the dirt, and those phases may take years. Sometimes a project phase hits a roadblock. For example, we may uncover historic artifacts during the environmental phase. or we must diligently work to help relocate families who live in the project's right-of-way. These are delicate situations that require immense care that could take months, sometimes years, to resolve. Other times, emergencies like a bridge crack or slope failure can suddenly become a top priority. When that happens, TDOT must adjust the 10-year plan and reallocate funds to address the immediate need. On the flip side, a project may be moved up when a local community brings additional dollars to the table or new funding is secured. It's a delicate balancing act, but it's all part of TDOT's commitment to keeping Tennessee's infrastructure connected, safe, and functional. Before the 10-year plan, things weren't always so organized. Projects were often stuck in limbo, awaiting funding, with no clear roadmap to move them forward. Now, thanks to the 10-year plan, TDOT has created a prioritization process that evaluates each project based on safety, cost, need, and deliverability. This process is thoughtful and dynamic. We constantly reevaluate to adapt to new circumstances. This new approach allows TDOT to move projects forward more effectively, ensuring what gets started gets finished. But that's not all. TDOT delivers more than the projects listed in the 10-year plan. You'll find additional planned work posted on our website, ranging from our 3-year pavement, bridge, and safety plans to our funding programs for transit, aviation, rail, and traffic operations and management. These plans provide even more clarity for Tennesseans and the industry, setting expectations for the funded work to come. TDOT is committed to transparency throughout this entire process. By laying out clear expectations and working with communities and stakeholders, we ensure the road to progress is accessible and clear for everyone. TDOT is deliberate in our approach, dedicated to delivering for Tennessee. That's why we're asking you to build with us.
Thanks for having us today. I would say that is the presentation, so I'm here for questions. She said it way better than I could.
Well, I will say the Alcoa Maryville Blount County did receive a statewide partnership program grant, or whatever we're going to call it, allocation or
Acceptance.
yeah. So that we got notified of that yesterday also. So
Yeah. So we had the new 10-year plan, is Mike and Craig alluded or talked about earlier today, was released last night. So it's fresh and out on the webpage for consumption. I will reiterate that it is the 10-year plan update that only considers our normal transportation dollars and the $3 billion that came with the TMA in 2023. What it doesn't do is consider the governor's ask for an additional $1 billion transfer this year to transportation. Until that money is approved, we are not presupposing what that money would be spent on. So again, if that is approved through the budget here in the next couple of weeks, then we would come back with an updated 10-year plan that shows how we would use that $1 billion. Probably sometime toward the end of May, middle part of June, somewhere in that neighborhood.
we've did a quick cursory review, and the thing we could see is we had one project pushed out, the I-640 Sharps Chapel, Chops Gap project. Now, that is also in the very, as you know, TDOT's doing the I-40 Knoxville corridor, and it's a big corridor that goes all the way from 75 through that project all the way out west. So we're assuming that may have got pushed until the results of that study come out, and they can kind of prioritize what improvements will be done in that corridor. But that's the one we could immediately see that was the difference from the last one.
And then you'd see the right-of-way moved up for Pellissippi Parkway extension. I think we had a project in Morgan County enter the plan that hadn't been in there previously. I think State Route 62 section of it. And then we had a few minor adjustments. Again, things may change slightly. Both of the Anderson 170 projects slid a year. We reevaluated the project as we had more defined plans and come to realize that a categorical exclusion NEPA document was not going to work, and we were going to have to do a full environmental assessment. So that added a year to the process. So both of those projects slid to FY26 for right-of-way and they both align for FY '29 for construction. So we will be letting that as one big project now.
Good deal. Thank you, Dexter. Thank you, Christie. Seeing no other questions, we'll go on to other business.
The only thing, the executive board meeting is on April 30th. Now, some of y'all sit in for your mayors. Remember, that's a week later. We had to push that back to accommodate some of the public. So check your calendar. You may have it, our normal time would be a week earlier. So it's the same time and same room, but it's just 1 week later. And we'll send a couple reminders out. This is the meeting we have to have a quorum to be able to pass the mobility plan. So we really need everyone's attendance at that meeting. And then the next tech committee would be May 13th of 2025. I don't know, I'll ask staff if there's any other announcements.
I just note real quick, I guess it could have been on the last item, federal update, just to let everybody know, Federal Highway did issue a notice of funding opportunity for the next round of SS4A safety funds. So I think the deadline was June 26th on that. So if anybody has any ideas or wants to talk to us about help with submitting a grant, let us know.
Thank you, Mike. Last item on the agenda is public comment. Dallas, we have anyone here from the public would like to comment? Seeing none, item number 11 is adjournment. Do I have a motion? All right, we're adjourned.